I think that it's fair to say we're all pretty pissed that Amazon's nonchalantly disregarding Tolkien's writing and are changing tons of his work around. They changed the way dwarven women look, they're messing with the timeline of his stories, they're creating non-Tolkien elves in a Tolkien story, but it looks like everyone is turning on Amazon and the Rings of Power's creative team because even fan sites are roasting the changes to this series, and while Lord of the Rings has been trending on social media, it's not because people are excited for the series to release. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month or supporting the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So I wanted to start off with this new Bounding into Comics article. It says the Lord of the Rings fan site torches Amazon's new The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power series. It's always hilarious to see literally everyone collectively come together and turn on a company. There are still some people that are excited for this series. They're hoping it's going to be good because ultimately we're not going to know for a couple of more months, but the more information they're releasing, the more worried everyone is getting. Following numerous plot details and the reveal of the first photos for Prime Video's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power in a Vanity Fair puff piece, the Lord of the Rings fan site, theonering.com, eviscerated the show for its utter disregard for Tolkien's writings. And keep in mind, this is not the onering.net that goes on social media and attacks people constantly and basically says, if you don't like the new work, you shouldn't consume it. But it says theonering.com expressed their concern for the show, noting that Vanity Fair's article raised multiple red flags for the show in a thread on Twitter, and a lot of people have been calling out all of these different red flags, but they're all kind of compiled here, so I wanted to read through some of them. The fan site read the Vanity Fair article, and there's a lot of red flags. I did talk about the Vanity Fair article in a video yesterday, the link will be in the description, but basically they called out anyone who's criticizing the show, calling us trolls, which is absolutely disgusting. The more we hear about this series and the more upset people become, the more they're fighting back against the fans, which definitely isn't going to help viewership. But it says, theonering.com tweeted, Amazon, but really, does it feel like Middle-earth if you don't have hobbits or something like hobbits in it? Tolkien, but there are, I fear, no hobbits in the Silmarillion. Back in 1961, Tolkien wrote, I am now under contract engaged in putting into order for publication the mythology and stories of the First and Second Ages, written long ago but judged hardly publishable, until the surprising success of The Lord of the Rings, which comes at the end, has provided a probable demand for the beginnings. But I fear there are no hobbits in the Silmarillion or history of the Three Jewels, little fun or earthliness, but mostly grief and disaster. So it's true, there are no hobbits in the Silmarillion, and I know everyone loves hobbits, everyone could eat up stories with hobbits, I know that I could, but they shouldn't be in this series, they shouldn't be here. That's one giant problem that people have. The second part, it says, Amazon, this is material that is sometimes scary, but it's also heartwarming and life-affirming and optimistic. It's about friendship, and it's about brotherhood and underdogs overcoming great darkness. But Tolkien literally said in the Silmarillion, there is little fun or earthliness, but mostly grief and disaster. So they're changing the basis of these stories. In the Silmarillion, there's no hobbits, there's no fun, there's no optimism, there's no lightheartedness. It's grief and disaster and bad times, and it's not very positive, and it seems like they're changing that, which is really worrying to people. While yes, we all love the stories with the hobbits and everyone coming together and everything working out for the heroes in the end, this series should be very different. This series should be very grim, very dark, lots of disaster, and it doesn't sound like they're going in that direction. Scrolling down to the next examples, it says Amazon, it felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. And this is a giant problem for me because we are talking about fantasy here. A lot of the time, Hollywood doesn't follow source material, but it's really important to point out we're talking about Tolkien's work here. It's the basis for so much entertainment. So many of the stories that are written and told are derivatives of his creation. And when they're talking about changing it and rewriting so much of it, yeah, people should be furious, and this is a massive problem. Tolkien's work was never supposed to directly reflect what the world looks like. It was never supposed to be that, yet they're twisting it into whatever they want, which is disgusting. They did tweet out there's so much more, compressing the storyline into a few years rather than the centuries needed. I am really disappointed to hear this, that they are changing around the timeline, and they admitted it in this Vanity Fair interview that they are changing around the timeline. They're compressing things, they're drawing other elements out they feel should be highlighted more. They are taking his work and literally doing whatever the hell they feel like. And it also says adding new forbidden romances. Don't get me wrong, I do not have a problem with there being romances in these types of series. I know that some people are like, there shouldn't be that many romances. It's supposed to be action and adventure, and I understand that some people don't like constantly seeing romances. I don't mind if there's like a romance side story, but again, they're changing around these interactions between characters to help them push romances and help push these different story elements they feel are going to help the series that I think personally are going to probably ruin them, that are going to be the downfall. And it says they then took issue with Vanity Fair's disparagement of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings fans. I am so disappointed because I wanted this series to be good. I wanted to try to give it a chance. I was hoping maybe some of these first images don't look great, but maybe the story will come together. Maybe the writing will be fantastic. The cinematography will be fantastic. But everything we hear makes fans more worried. And going on over to something like Twitter and social media, everyone is roasting this series right now. Some of the first images, everyone's voicing their concerns. The Quartering said Amazon released their first look at the Lord of the Rings show, quite the reimagining coming our way. This is a giant problem for me, this character. I did talk about this in my previous video as well, but she is supposed to be a dwarven princess, and as far as we know, dwarven women are supposed to look almost identical to the men. She doesn't have a beard. They made her look very feminine. They took it in a very different direction, which is completely disregarding the source material. The woke mob has succeeded in destroying Star Wars and Star Trek to the point of no return. Now the mob has their sights set on the Lord of the Rings and 007. Gandalf should be a woman. Robin Malcolm on the Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings series. As the famous quote from J.R.R. Tolkien himself, evil cannot create anything new. They can only corrupt and ruin what good forces have invented or made. And I really, really hope that in time we'll see more information about this series that will look positive, but at this point I highly doubt that this series is going to be successful. But that's all that I really had to talk about in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.